Testing the sound. Excuse me, testing the sound. I don't know why I always have to clear my throat before I start. I should learn to clear it before I click the on. Excuse me. Hi, Rhonda. Cindy. Hi, Cindy. How's everybody doing? Little nippy out tonight. Not as bad as it has been, I guess. Everybody have their Christmas decorations up? And I believe this is time to say Happy Hanukkah. If I'm not properly correct, I apologize. Well, Cindy, Rhonda, are you sewing along? I had to rearrange to make room for the tree. And if you could see the space, you'd laugh. But I did get a new chair. I got a new little one that twirls around. So my other computer, which usually is probably 5 feet away from me, now is behind me, an inch away from me. So I call it my little bowling alley. I got a little bowling alley down the middle. But the tree has plenty of room next to the slider. Oh, you're not sewing tonight, Rhonda? That's okay. We got things to learn anyway. Which reminds me, I want to do a little sample or a little demo. And yes, I'm cutting crooked on purpose. Not that I can't cut crooked without meaning to. Okay, we got a few minutes yet. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Rhonda, there's always something new to learn, isn't there? Or something to remind you that you forgot about. That's a good one, too. Did everybody that did any of you did the sew along, do the little pouch for your hand sanitizer to hook onto your pocketbook or onto your, I guess you could put it onto the belt loop of your jeans if you didn't have a pocketbook. This is Saturdays. Isn't it cute, little thing? Looks like a little loaf of bread. And I have my mask. My mask is inside there. So now I can hook both of these things onto my bag. And if I head into the store and think I forgot anything, I'm good. I'm good to go. We just have a few more minutes. I want you to be proud of me. I have a pad of paper and a pencil. I know last week I kept forgetting what I kept doing my measurements and forgetting them. But when you sew along with me, you sew along just how I sew when I'm by myself. And sometimes that could be a little sad, but we try to laugh. Oh, hi, Lynn. How you doing? Gonna drink my tea with honey to see if that clears up my little recording live frog in my throat, because I don't have it any other time. And we got just one more minute. Excuse me. And I might as well let me check my other camera. How's that looking? That looks fine. Oh, let's see if it can. Have to give it something to focus on. Oh, how about that? There we go. And that way, if I get my hand in the way, yeah, it's fine. Okay, I think we got all our technical difficulties under control. I've got so much light in here that I feel like I'm at the airport or. Okay, so it's 7:01. Excuse me. I did the notice a little earlier today. I think it was like 15 minutes to give everyone a chance to gather their stuff or get a cup of coffee and a donut or whatever you're going to do. So earlier I was showing, we did this last week, our little hand sanitizer. This is our Saturday class. And this is my snap that I kind of wrecked on one side, but it seems to work all right. And so it's a little companion now. So you can see they're both pretty small. And my mask is inside. And there was plenty of room in there. I think probably if you had those, like the disposable ones, or you could probably put a few in there. So that's this coming Saturday. And make a note that we're 1:30 this Saturday instead of our usual 1 o'clock, because I have to work. One Saturday a month. Okay, so today, it'd be helpful if I had the picture up. Today, we're working on this outside border with these cornerstones. So, I thought I was very smart. Then I found out I wasn't. So, I had everybody do their border, or suggested your border be 3 inches, because I was going by our strip set, and there's a 3-inch one. Well, then we need the cornerstones, little cornerstones here. So I went to the package, and I was fortunate enough to catch a sale where it was buy one get one free of extra of the squares and the half squares and so forth. So I thought, oh great, I'll just use that. And then I looked at it here. I don't know why I took that off. That was silly. Yes, I know. I have to put it all back the way it was. And then I looked down here, and it was 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3.5. And I went, oh, what am I going to do now? So I realized after I sat there a minute, I even went to the big box, the the Build-A-Block bigger box, and I thought, well, maybe these were different sizes, but no, it's the same size. So then I thought, well, everybody's cut their strips 3 inches, but how are they going to cut their corner squares? So, and I'm holding on to this because I want to give you a little demo on that. So I got my fabric, so I need 4 corner squares. So I just folded it in half. And again, this is one of those 10-inch squares from the layer cake. So what I'm going to do, right before your very eyes, is, so I want the 3-inch one, which is the third one in. So what we're going to do, I'll do mine first, I'll be the experimenter, is with, and this is going to waste a bit of fabric, but it's okay. And you could do it so you don't, but I'm going to make it easy. So I'm going to run this through, and then this piece becomes 3 inches. So let me do that first. Let me get my little sandwich ready. And I'm using the little plates today. And remember, because this is a strip and it's straight, I don't have to worry about straight of grain because I'm going straight. If I either go this way or this way, I'm straight. It's only when you have those half square triangles and quarter square triangles. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. So I'm just stepping over here for a second. Let me make sure I got my sandwich good. Okay, so I'm going to turn that. I'm going to turn that. And did I get? Oh, I got a little thread caught. Pardon my reach again. And I don't want to pull it because that one thread will run. So now I have a 3-inch strip. I'm just going to turn it and put it this way. That'll give me my 3-inch squares. Okay? And I know I didn't turn the 2 bottom ones, but I think I'm just doing this quickly, so we should be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those. Okay, so I have to show you what happened. Oh no, let me get my tape. They fell out on the floor as I was moving along because there's nothing holding it here with that little bow. All right. And you know, these don't have to be exactly on top of one another. But I'm going to turn it this way because I'm going to cut down this end and leave the fold over here. So let me get, that was pretty funny. Is anybody laughing? All right, where's the beginning of my tape? Now you can watch me struggle. I don't generally let these go back. Okay, so I want to make sure I have this. So my fabric is going this way, but this dye's going the opposite way, but I still want it to be straight. It'd been funny if I sent it through and there was no fabric in there. Okay, now we'll go. That was quite noisy, did you hear it? Because I was going through the big Gemini this way. Which way is that to you? This way. So the long pieces, the long parts of the die, that's what was making it snap a little, snap and sound a little bit. Oh, tape down. You get that tape off. So if you need to cut your squares, go ahead. Now if you have the, the Accuquilt cutter and you have the strip die cutter, you can do the exact same thing. That's when you can do a whole bunch of squares at the same time. Okay, so let me just get this out of the way. So I did want to show you that in case you had that same issue I did. So if you think about it, when you have the strip set, you really have another whole set of, or a few more sizes of squares that you can do. So let me just, while I'm putting this away, we'll just see if anybody has any questions about that. So we solved that problem. So we'll move these out of the way. Oh, hit my elbow. I hit my elbow on the table behind me. Okay. I know, I got to put things away. So now I have my strips and my corner squares. And what we're going to be doing is we have to measure. You may have done your measuring already, but I'm going to do it again just in case you need a review from last week. So we need to measure how wide the strips are and how long the strips are, or how long they are this way and how long they are that way, because they're already 3 inches wide. When you have corner squares, the strips are going to be equal to whatever the top is, the table runner in this case. No matter, so excuse me. So if I put these strips on, it doesn't make these any longer. You see how it runs here? You remember how last time we put our side strips on and then we had to measure with the side strips, the side borders on, to get what this bottom and top border will be. Well, because we have corner squares, the corner square is what takes up the difference of adding the border on. So see, when we put these two borders on, the corner square takes up the same distance as the side borders, so that your bottom and top border are exactly the same size as your table runner before or after you put these on. So we can go ahead and measure for both directions at the same time. Well, one at each time, but we can get we can measure both parts at once and then put all four on. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Sometimes I explain it and it makes it worse. So I'm going to set these aside for the moment. And I have a small area. So your area is going to be bigger. I have a small area and I can't find my table runner. Oh. And let's see if I can move my machine a little bit for the moment. Yeah. Oh. And let me back up the camera a little bit. There, so you at least can see. So you're going to be on a nice flatter surface. So you shouldn't have to keep moving it like I am, but you know, if you do have a small area, you may very well have to do that. And that's okay too, isn't it? So remember, we're going to do, because, excuse me, because we can measure for the top and bottom and then measure for the sides before we sew anything, we might as well just get it all measured. So I'm going to take my little paper here and I'm going to put top and bottom, and then I'll go left, right. Okay, so remember, we're measuring across the top, then we're going to come and measure across the middle, and then we're going to come and measure along the bottom. But we don't want to go to the very edge, because if your very edge is a little wavy, we don't want to count that. So I'm going to come in before this border and measure across. Oops, sorry if that made a lot of noise. Kind of startled me. And I'm at 18 3/4, and I'm going to come down, and I want to try to maintain this as flat as possible. And I'm just a little under 18 3/4, an 1/8 inch under, or maybe it's a 1/16. And now I'm going to measure the bottom. So it's 18 and 1, 2, 3, let's see, 18 is a half, and then another 8, so a half is 4/8, 5/8. I'm going to go 18 5/8. Okay, so I know my top and bottom measurement. So now I have to measure, see if I can. Now this one you really don't want to do on a smaller area, but let's see which way I can go. I think last time I went this way. So again, I'm going to measure the side, the middle, the side, but I'm not going to go out to the edge. And you really would prefer to measure this on a flat surface, because I'm hanging over the edge. So I'm going to hang on to my tape and push myself up, or push the runner up, make sure it stays flat. And this is 32 3/4. It's a miracle if I get this one right. Okay, then I'm going to go to the middle. And again, I'm going to try to keep this as flat as possible. Okay, this one is, I'm going to have to write this down because I feel like I would. Okay. You do that, look for something like that. Okay, so this is, I'm going to measure this one again. Because let's start over here. I'm paying more attention to not dropping stuff and forgetting my measurements. Okay, so we're at 0. So this is 32 and I'm going to say 7/8. And see, that measured different than the first time. So I've got to really pay attention because I'm not on a flat surface. So I'm doing this probably the most unexact that I could be. Now this one is 33 1/4. Holy moly. And I'm glad it's off because this will happen to, well, I'm not really glad, but I'm glad that you can see because this will happen to you as well. And it could be just the way because I'm, moving this so much. And that one's 33. Okay, so my middle one, so my right side is 32 7/8. So that's 1/8, 1/8 away from the 33. My middle one is 33, and my other end is 33. My middle is 33 1/4. So I may be bowing out here a little bit. Doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to go with the 33. That's almost in between the two. So if you, because I'm 1/8 short and 1/4 over, and then one's right on 33. So do you see? I'm just going to go with 33. So let me get that out of the way. Okay, so across I need 18 5/8, top and bottom, excuse me. And my sides, I'm going 33. So I'm going to cut my sides first. I always cut whatever's longest first. And again, I know I'm going to need 2 strips. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of my salvages. And I'm going to reach over and make sure my iron didn't shut off because I want to iron out this fold because I can tell, and you see, if I match my salvages up down here, my fold isn't in the center. Okay, so iron is on. We're going to trim our salvages, and I can guarantee you about 90% of the time, if you say, oh, I'll worry about my salvages when I need to, you're going to forget. It happens when I do classes. It happens to me. It happens often enough that you really should just learn to cut them. And while I'm at it, I might as well cut the other one. And set that aside. So I'm just going to open this up and give that a press where the folds are. Because that fold is so, can you see if I lay this fabric down? Yeah, there you can. You see how it tense up like that? So
I'm always on the left.
So if I didn't iron these out, you can see the little, it looks like a line, but it's really like a little tent. So if I'm sewing along and putting these on, that little fold may just stay right in there. So if you've got some folds, use your starch or your best press or some steam, and I'm just going to press right here. I'm not going to do any ironing. I'm just going to press. And sometimes those folds can be hard to get out, especially if you've had a fabric for a while. So I'm just gonna put that aside. But generally, if you wet it or best press or starch, you'll be okay. Okay, so I need to have, these are my long ones, so I need these to be 33. And I don't have 33. I have 23. But I'm going to go this way so you can see it. So 33 is 11 3 times. See how I did that in my head? Okay, so I'm going to find 11. And this isn't going to be the best accuracy, but we're going to do our best here. So that's, well, let me do this because I can't quite tell where my fingernail ends. So 11, I'm just going to put the pin right on the 11. Put it on the 11, I just didn't put it in the fabric. So my pin, can you see it right there? My pin is laying right on the 11 line. Then I can move that pin. Let's see if I can get up high enough. I'm going to move that pin. There we go. So that pin will be on the 0. I can't reach it. I can't reach it at that distance. All right, so look, my pin has gone crooked. So I've got to take the time to make sure I pin that in. So the pin went in, but you know how you do the pin in and up so it stays? I didn't have the up there. Okay, so I'm right on the 11, and I'm going to the 0. Can take that pin out, go to the 11. That's number 2. I want to make sure that pin is straight. Okay, take that to the 0 and 11 again. That's 33. 3 11s is 33. Let me check my paper. 33. Okay, so there's one. I'm going to do the exact same thing again. And I know, some people don't have a big area to cut in. So we try to do our best with the area we got to work with. So I'm on the 11 again. And I don't know, you probably can't see, maybe you can. My pin is crooked. I got to make sure that the head of my pin, this part right here, stays nice and straight. So 11, that's 1. And you can leave the pins in case then you can count, oh yeah, I got 3 pins I can cut. But I'm going to live on the edge. Take my pin out. That's 2. And then 11. 33. Okay, so I'm going to set those up there. Those are my sides. And these are good pieces to save. And now I need 18 5/8. So I know I can get both of them out of here because this is 40 or 42. Salvage to salvage is 40, 40. I always say 40 to be on the safe side because nothing is less than 40. You'll have some that are 44, some that are 42. So what I need is, so I'm going to line these up. So I'm going to come both at the same time. So I need it to be 18 and 5/8. Well, so my mat's 18. Isn't that nice? So rather than try to figure out the 5/8, I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to make sure I stay on this straight, just to make sure I keep my strip straight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it 19. And the reason why is when I cut this 19, then I can come back to this end and straighten it up in case these two aren't perfectly lined up to each other. So I'm going to go to 19. And fortunately, my mat is numbered in each direction. So 19, pardon my reach. I'm going to make sure that my ruler is straight. My strip is straight. 19, I'm going to double check. I can see I'm a little more than 19, but it's up past where I can see, so I'd rather be a little past. You know, if I'm looking at something from back here and it's over here, I can't see unless I'm over it if it's really exactly where it needs to be. So now I'm going to turn this around. And this time I'm probably going to get my head in your way. So I'm lining it up down here. This is the two, so this was the folded end. Here's my little fold piece. This was the folded end. This was the original where the two strips were. And rather than try to fidget with them for 20 minutes trying to get them exactly straight, I cut a little extra so now I can go back here and cut and then I know they're straight. So I'm doing 18 and 5/8. So pardon me if I get right over you. So 5/8, that's 1/8 past the half. And I want to make sure again my rulers, my lines are straight with my strip. And I can even bring this down here now to do it. Okay, so hopefully that made sense to you. Okay, so before I do my strips, I can now go ahead and put my cornerstones on. Because when I put my side strips on, I can't put my top and bottom strips on because then how do I get that corner on there? So what we're in essence what we're doing is once these two strips are on, this becomes a row. This from here to here is a row. Now this will be a row. So you'll have the corner just the same as we did with the sashing. Remember how we did the sashing and then a cornerstone? Same idea. So I'm gonna, let's make it a little easier and we'll go ahead and put our side strips on. So we'll set our top and bottom strips aside with our corner squares and let's put our side strips on. I was trying to get cutting done so I wouldn't have to keep moving the machine, being annoying about it. So let me get some things out of the way here. Did anyone have any questions on that? Do I need to do that again? Or explain anything? Don't let me forget about these now. I want to show you something. I'll make you wait till near the end, so you can't leave me too soon. Okay, so I have my Microtex 7010 needle in. I'm going to use my J foot, Baby Lot Brother J foot Do you know me? It's the A foot. I'm going to go into my, let me switch to the other camera. Maybe you can see it there. Okay. Hang on. We're going to turn for a second. I don't want to make you dizzy. All right. Let's see if I can back up. Oh, back up. All right. Now I'm going to see if I can reach and shut that light up, because I know the light dims the screen down. Can you? Okay, so let me come in a little. All right, so I'm going to have to hold my tripod just for a second so you can see. Okay, so I have the Solaris. So if you have the brother version, which is the Luminaire, I believe it is, on the Destiny and the Elissimo, you have tabs along the side. Mine just happened to be across the top. So I want the one that's Q. Then if you look right here, let me get in closer. Okay, you see how these three have P? Oh, sorry, I have my hand in the way. P for piecing. And if you look, the first one on the left, the O1, the stitching is in the middle. O2, the stitching is to the right. And O3, the stitching is to the left. Now, if you have one of the smaller machines, you'll still have these stitches. They'll just not be under the quilting tab. But when you see the P, that's for piecing. So I want Q, O2. And it's going to automatically move my needle, but it is also going to, see if I can back up some more, it automatically changed my length to 2.0. Because really with piecing, you want it a little smaller. That's fine. I generally go, yeah, 2.0 is fine. I was going to say 1.8, but that's for paper piecing. So it automatically changes to what is the recommended piecing stitch length. Okay, so close your eyes for a second. I'm going to switch us back. And I'm going to zoom in. But I know I talk about that every week, and I don't always show what it looks like, so maybe that'll give you a little better idea. And let me move this so it focuses in. There. Okay. So regular, sorry, that was my hand in the way. Regular sewing thread, 70 microtack. I have nothing to sew. I guess we need to come back to the workspace. Here we go. Be helpful if we pinned our borders on, wouldn't it? Okay, and we're going to do the same as we've done before. I'm going a little slow right now in case anybody needs to cut anything or get caught up. I don't want anyone to feel like they're behind. So I want to make sure that this end is lined up. So, and do you remember last time we talked about, can you see how my piece is just a little wider than this part? I just need to trim it, and I want a longer ruler for this because I want to make sure that I use a bit of this side border to make sure I got this right. And I want to make sure that my line, my ruler is straight across the top. So I have to pardon my head for 1 minute. So it was just a little sliver. Okay, so now we can, right sides together. You want to make sure that this corner, you're lined up in both directions. And we talked about last time when something gets to be longer and how we're going to pin it. So remember, I'm not going to pin right at the end because I got to get my foot in there. But if I'm concerned with this moving, I can just put a pin this way. Now I know my corner is going to stay right where it's supposed to be. And let me move that out of the way. Where's my corner? Oh. And I'm going to come down a little ways, and I want to make sure that everything's nice and smooth. I don't want you to put like, you know, a pin every minute, every inch. I'm lining up this along the side. So I've probably gone, I don't know, 10 inches or so. And now I'm going to go down to the bottom. Ow, stabbed myself. And I want to make sure this is nice and flat. And my strip is a tad longer than this end because this was the short side. So I'm going to line it up so it's correct along the bottom and the side. So along this side and the bottom. And you see I got a little ripple there. So all I have to do is just, I'm up here, I'm just smoothing it out. Remember, we have lots of seams here, and with these lots of seams, I'm sure you've noticed your blocks want to come in a little bit because there's so many seams there. And you would have given this a good press before you got to this part. So even though I felt like I had too much strip, and you're going to have the tendency to want to cut it off, we don't want to do that because we want to end up with the left and right being exactly the same size. So I just had to smooth it a little bit, which means I didn't really tug it. I just held on to it. And if you had a bigger, ow, stabbed myself with a pin again. And I'm just going to put one more in. If you had a bit of a bigger excess fabric on the top, then you would undo this pin and spread out that excess a little more because you might have pulled this part a little too tight. Okay, so let's get this one strip on, this one border on. I have to stand up, pardon me, I gotta stand up to this one. I can't see that far down. So we're going to get lined up for our 1/4 inch seam. We're going to just start our stitching so that the needle is down. It gives us an extra hand of help. And remember how we're going to do our hand. Thumb is underneath. The palm is facing away from you. And I'm going to come down about 10 inches or so. And then I'm turning it. So now my palm is facing me. My thumb is under the fabric. So I've made like, you know how, what is it? Ribbon candy is. Kind of has that mountain and valley. And that will also help your fabrics stay the same. I'm going to go ahead and take that pin out I had on the side because you know my story about forgetting a pin. I'm double checking that my underneath fabric is still in line with my border fabric. I'm near my pin, so I'm going to stop. Adjust my hand down. Let me see if I go to the other. Let me see if the other camera gives you a better view. Oh, that's a little too close, though. Let me back up. Yeah, let's try that. So my hand is this way. See my thumb underneath there? And then I turn it. Oh, that camera's going to do that. Let me give it some place to focus on. There. Hopefully my hand won't change it now. Don't look up like I just did. I was checking to see the focus. Get near that pin. Adjusting my hand again. It's right here. I'm just trying to keep it out of the camera area. And I'm always checking along here. And now I'm going to take out both of my pins because I want to make sure that this guy down here stays nice and even. And I'm going to put a pin over on the left to make sure this stays like correctly. I don't know if that's a better view for you or not. And I'm hanging on to both ends. And hopefully, I'm still hanging on here. Hopefully my hand won't throw the focus off. Okay? I'm going to take that pin out right away. See how I put the pin over there? Maybe you can see better from here. You'll have to let me know if it's better to look in this direction. Let me see if I can come in a little more. If you can see better here or with the other camera, just let me know. Okay, so remember, once this is done, I got my little pressing mat. Let's see if I can do that. I just don't want to run into my sewing machine. So remember, we want to set the seam. Because my iron shuts off every 2 seconds. So we're just going along this edge. And you wouldn't be bunched up on top of a computer and so forth. Then we want to open this up. So the seam allowance is going to go towards the outside border fabric. I'm holding the iron with one hand, doing this with the other. And I just want to come down here. I'll be a left-handed iron presser. I just want to come down and do the border. I don't want to come out in this area out here. I want to make sure I hold this up. Can you see I'm holding this up so that that seam allowance goes in the direction that I want it to. I hope my arm isn't in your way too much. And you can just look on the back and see that that border, that seam allowance is going out towards the border. Okay, isn't that looking nice? So let's put our other border on. I don't see any questions, so hopefully you're all getting it. Someone can tell me, you know, and maybe nobody wants to, that if you can see just as well here, if you like the close-up, I'll go close-up until you say otherwise. I just worry about my hand being more in your way with the close-up. Okay, so I got that same little crookedness there. That means I should have done that before class. It's just a little sliver that's just annoying. It just annoys me. I mean, we're talking, see, that little sliver. It's throwing my eyeball off. Okay, so again, we're going to line it up so we're lined up across the top and along the side. Cindy, why do you not want to press all the way out to the edge? If you press all the way out to the edge, you'll have the tendency to ripple this end, or you'll end up that your strip kind of bows out a tad where you've pressed, because when we press, unless you're real careful and really press up and down, but people have the tendency to regular iron, and when you push that fabric with the heat, you're pushing it out a little bit. One of the other things that you can do is, if you, I'm trying to think, if you have a pressing mat if you have an ironing board that has the lines on it, when you open up your strip, you can make sure that that strip runs right along that line. But I'm not sure if the ironing board covers come that way anymore. It's just a precaution to just not end up with a little bit of a bow in your strip. It's especially true when you're working on something that's little. So I'm going to line that top up so I've pinned over there. And then I'll pin a little ways down. I just want to keep checking to make sure that my table runner underneath is in line with the border fabric. Oh, good, Cindy, that made sense. Good. You know, Cindy, when we're ironing and we're just ironing away and we kind of start daydreaming kind of thing, and next thing you know, we've pushed that border out just in one area. And it'll be like maybe a 1/4 inch or so, but it'll still be bowed. So now I'm going to go down the other end and line this bottom up. And I'll put the 2 pins in again. So you see I've got one there. I'm going to put this one. So it just holds this. See if I start moving and fidgeting around up here, do you see what happens down here? Hi, Christine. Oh, hi, Gloria. Okay, Gloria. Gloria has her borders done. She's late, but she has them done. Now that's fast. I think she's trying to tell us she did her borders earlier. Maybe not. So now I'm going to make sure I smooth down to where my last pin was. Everything's nice and smooth. Okay, so we're ready to go again. Let me get a drink of my tea first. I can feel another cough coming on. Hope you didn't have to hear me swallowing. That would be just unfortunate. Okay. So I'm lifting my foot just so that I've got my fabric just barely under my needle. And I can just do my needle down to hold it, but I like to go a few stitches. And you haven't lived until you've run your sewing pedal from standing up. And now I can get myself all situated. So I brought my fabric up onto the table so I'm not dragging it, you know, as it gets heavier, as we go along, it gets heavier. And I've done my hand, you just can't see it there. I've done my hand, that doesn't make sense. I've positioned my hand like I've showed you before. I'm just repositioning my hand again. So here it is, and here see my thumb? My thumb's under the fabric. And I'm checking to make sure I always check to make sure, every time I stop, to make sure my two fabrics, my border and my table runner, are still lined up together. Reposition my hand again, bringing more of my fabric up onto the table, making sure that my two fabrics are lined up. Now I'll start here, just so you can get the other view. There. So now you can probably see my hand better. So I'm going to go a little ways further. And I'm leaving this side pin in, but I'm taking this end pin out because I want to make sure that everybody's still hanging out together like they should be. And now I'm just doing like a little, I can't get my whole hand in, but I get kind of that, I still do the, once you start doing it, you just do it automatic after a while. The hand turn. And then I'm just going to hang on. And you notice my left hand still stayed on the fabric. And right now I'm going to take that pin out, because I know I would forget. Oh, pardon my head again in your way. Okay, so let's see if I can. Oh, Gloria said that would be a true statement. I'm not sure which one I said, but I'm pretty sure she had hers already done. She's that kind of girl. So we're setting our seam, and again, I'm staying away from that edge. Hopefully you have a little bit bigger pressing mat and your machine's not right next to it. I always worry that I'm going to melt my machine, and I would really be troubled by that. So I'm just going to start to lift this, but I really want my iron to do it because it's going to push that seam allowance out. So let me do my left-handed ironing. So I don't want to just do this because it may be my seam allowance is under there. But if I lift it and then let my iron take it out, it just works, and then you'll have no crease there. Oh, hot, hot, hot. Okay. And I tried to keep this as flat as possible while it cools off a bit. Otherwise, if I wrinkle it right up again, I'm wrinkling it while it's warm, and, you know, then the wrinkles are going to stay. Okay, so now, here's that, nope, kind of getting too big for the camera almost. Here's that, 2 borders are on, so I'm going to set this aside for a minute. I don't know where, but there we go. And now we're gonna make our other, I'm gonna call them rows. Yeah, I'll put them this way. So, top border, bottom border. And there's one on each side. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna pin it, and I wanna make sure that all 4 sides are lined up. And I'm gonna pin it back here, because that way then I don't have to move my pin. And then I'm going to do the other end. And again, I said 4 sides, didn't I? All 3 sides are gonna be even. And I'm going to do the bottom one. And I'm going to do the other end. And it's right sides together, of course. Sides even, bottoms even. So you can see pretty well from there. This. So I'm going to go ahead and I better stand up, see if I can make sure I can get my seam allowance. Because your seam allowance being right is going to be a little bit important here, because you have to match the cornerstones just the same as we did on the sashing. And what I do is I just reach around and sew the other one. And then I can just grab this one. Need to go a little more. And then reach around. And it doesn't matter if you twist this or not. They're not going to be hooked together when you're done. Oh. Okay, so I can take all the pins out. And then I can just clip in between. Okay, and then we need to press. We'll do one at a time. They're a little short. And we pressed out on our long seam, so we really should press in on these. So I'm going to turn it over, and you see I've turned it over to the long side. So that means it'll press into this border. Because remember, we want to lock our seams. Oh, and I folded my fabric over. Okay, so the fabric on top is where the seam allowance is going to go. We want the seam allowance going in to the long part because the longer border went out. You'll see in a minute. Okay. Okay, I'm going to just set that aside. I keep moving this around so I don't forget to show you that. Okay, so let's see. Let me move my machine a little bit. Can you see right there? I'll try to do it there on this angle. Okay, because we pressed the seam allowance out, we want this seam allowance to go in. Okay? Geez, that looks kind of orange in the camera. Because we want this seam allowance going one way, this seam allowance is going the other. So let's see if I can do this. So what I'm doing is I'm lining, the most important thing first is to line up this seam allowance with the other seam allowance. And I want to make sure it lines up the whole way down. So I shouldn't feel any bump. Well, I'm going to feel a little bump because there's extra seams there. You just have, and that's why you saw me turn it over to look to see what that bump was all about. What is there? Oh, it's the seam of the inside border. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pin, and I always pin right after that seam, and then I'll go ahead and get this straightened out. Keeping in mind, I want to make sure I don't want to be pulling this fabric so that this border, this seam no longer lines up. Oh, and I can pin on this side. So I want to make sure I'm lined up in both directions. Then I'm not going to pin in the middle, I'm going to go to the other side first. And I'm going to do the same thing. And then I'm going to come to the edge and just pin that. Now I'll come to the middle. I'll flatten, get this nice and flattened out. And pin the middle. Okay? I mean, if you really want to put another set of pins there, I guess you can. Hey, I'm not there. I won't know, will I? Okay, so I just like to pin one at a time, get one done. So let me switch over. Let me see. Did anybody have any questions? No, we're good. Okay. So my biggest concern is to make sure I start right so that I have my fabric lined up on this side and this side. You have to pardon my hand for just a second there. Okay, so I'm going to, again, take a few stitches, settle myself in, which means I want to get my fabric up off of, so it's not hanging off the table. Get my hand situated. My only goal right now is to make sure I try to get these two seams locked and lined up well. That's my only concern for the moment. And because I pinned right after it, I've actually sewn onto that seam allowance, so I know that's not going to shift now, but I will still hold my hand here while I take the pin out. Then I'll situate my hand, make sure the underneath fabric and the top fabric are together. Stop, readjust my hand. Okay, I can take this pin out. And again, I always hold my hand here when I take a pin out. Make sure that my underneath fabric and the top fabric are lined up. Now, my eyeball's back to this seam. Oh, geez, I'm always stabbing myself. My eyeball's back to this seam. So I'm just feeling to make sure, yep, it's still nice and flat. So I'm not going to worry about this corner. I just want to worry about these seam allowances lining up. Okay, now if I need to concern myself with the corner, I can do that, but I don't have to really because I still have that pin there. So nothing shifted. And immediately pin comes out. Okay, so back to pressing again. Oh, pin out. See, I almost forgot that one. Well, the good thing with pressing in this case is that I gotta move my other strip. Because my table runner's up on my computer area. Okay, so I'm setting my seam first. Oh, the snowman fell over. And I'm gonna lift and press out. Again, I'm gonna lift it, press it out. Okay, let's see how our corners came out. Oh, I'll even go into the close-up camera. Let me turn that light down. I turned that light down when we were looking at the screen. So let's see how we are. Here we go. That looks pretty good. I'll take that. Here's my other one. So we're just trying to line up here. Okay? So one more side to go. My steam's going right through my mat, right through my pressing mat. Good thing I had my junk towel nearby. Okay, so we've got one side all done. Now the last side. Everybody doing okay? And we're going to do the exact same thing again. So let's see if I can flip that around so you can see. Right sides together. First thing I'm doing is making sure this seam allowance and the underneath seam allowance are locked together. And making sure that I'm lined up this way. So I want to do this pin first. And I'm going to come over and do the pin over here. All right, so I have a little issue. Do you see that? A little bit of fabric. But before I cut it off, I want to make sure who's wrong. So what I'm going to do is, and I'm not sure you can see it, but I'll try to, I'm going to get my ruler. And I know my pin is there. But what I want to do is run a long ruler along the edge of the border. Make sure that I'm square up here. So I'm going to bring this down. And I'm looking here as well. And I'm looking here. So that definitely that piece doesn't need to be there. And let's see if I can cut it without. So if it had, and it's just, again, another one of those slivers. If it had been a case of the underneath fabric lined up perfectly and it was the top one, then when you stitch along this edge where they don't meet, as long as the top one is less than the 1/4 inch seam you're taking, you're going to use the underneath fabric, which we're going to say is the correct one, as your guide, so that you're stitching right along here. You're not like stitching in and then coming out. You're going to stitch right along here. Let's see if I can show you what I mean. I'm going to make it a little crooked, but so you can see what I mean. Okay. So you see how the back fabric, the red fabric, is past this one. So if the red fabric is correctly in line with everything else, it's just the black one, maybe you just cut it a little off. You don't have to do a new block because you're well inside of the 1/4 inch seam allowance. But when you run your foot needs to use the red fabric as the guide for the 1/4 inch, and just don't look at this one at all. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, so what we're saying is the underneath fabric, the red fabric, is lined up properly with the rest of this piece here. And it's this black fabric that's a little short. You would leave it just like that, and then you're going to use the red fabric as the guide for your 1/4 inch, and so you would be stitching right along here, and this black fabric is well within the 1/4 inch. You're fine. You don't have to do it all over. If it was like, you know, this far off, outside the 1/4 inch, well, then you'd have to put a new square on. But if it's just that, like that little, well, let's see, like that little bit, then just use the correct fabric for your line for your 1/4 inch seam. But also make sure you're still lined up this way. Now that I've messed mine all up. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Sometimes things are just off, you know, a little bit, and you don't have to do the whole thing over or get yourself unnecessarily upset. There's enough things that can do that. Anyway, so now I'm going to go to the other end. And I'm lining up this seam allowance so it's flush with the underneath one, not on top. Remember, they're side by side, and you can feel it's nice and flat. And I just want to make sure I'm lined up here. I'm not concerned about this right at this moment. I just want to get this seam straight. And it needs to be straight the whole way down. And generally that will make this part out here go where it's supposed to. Then I'm going to come out here, make sure everything is nice and straight, and put that pin here. I find the pin going this way instead of having one here seems to help me keep this edge straight. Hopefully it works for you. Okay? Then I'm just going to lay this out. Excuse me. Tea drinking. Everybody have a drink of coffee, tea, whatever you're drinking, wine. I try to swallow so carefully and quietly, I think it makes it louder. I want to make sure this is nice and flat. I want to make sure it's lined up here. And I'm just going to put one pin in. When you do the hand thing, you actually don't need any pins in. I learned that years and years and years ago from a lady that did garment sewing in the factory, and they would just run one thing after another, and they never used pins because that slows down production, and that's how they did it. And it's always worked, especially if you're putting like 2 long strips together. I just pin the beginning and I pin the end, and that's the only pinning there is. So give that a whirl. Okay, I'm still moving these around. We'll get to them in a minute. Okay. So I'll leave you on this screen this time. So I just want to put a few stitches in and get so now you can see I'm getting my fabric up onto the table. But I still want this whole area stays nice and smooth. So normally I would just kind of fold this, because if you start wrinkling it all up, then you got to stop and iron again, and it's, you know, who wants to do that, huh, Rhonda? Unnecessary ironing. Okay, so I'm coming down to where that seam is. Now, my pin went under my foot a little bit because it's a pin. There's no depth to it or lift to it. But I'm not going to stitch over it. So I stopped before I got to the needle. And you notice I held this down. And again, what I do is I pull my fabric a little bit just to check if the underneath guy's doing any kind of shenanigans. You notice I keep pushing my fabric up. I'm not going to be working this way because see how I'm getting all bunched up there? See how it's flat? See the, oh, let's see the difference? Okay, so take that little extra time. Oh, and take this pin out. Checking my fabric underneath. Okay, I'm at my seam allowance. I'm just double checking to make sure it feels nice and flat there. Now, you don't want it to feel so flat that one seam is like a ½ inch away from the other one. You want them side by side. I feel like mine are away from each other. I'm gonna reach under and look. And see, I'm keeping my fingers right there. And then right beside the foot. Okay, now I'm just gonna double check this end. Okay, pin out, pin out, and shut off. There we go. My little baby pressing mat. Okay, I gotta move these again. You're going to take a little more time with your pressing. You're not going to be all crunched up in a corner. The ideal thing is if you have a ironing board, you can lay this right out on the ironing board. I'm going to switch to my left-handed ironing. I'm still trying to keep that fabric up until the iron gets to it to push it down. My arm too much in your way here. Let me get it out of the way a little more. And normally I would flip it over and press the other side. Okay, so we're done. Let's see if I can back up a little bit. Got my old Fenway Park shirt on. So I'm not sure if you can, how much of it you'll be able to see. So there we are. I'm upside down. Not that it matters, but I like the card trick the best, so I have it. And look, you've got those nice corner squares. They're lined up nicely. And sometimes putting in the corner squares gives you enough fabric. If you're a little short on your strip fabric, doing a corner square on each end can sometimes make it so you don't have to piece that long piece. So did everybody get theirs done? Okay, so now we move everything out of the way. Let me see if anybody has any questions. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Rhonda. Thanks, Gloria. Yes, Rhonda, I know ironing is your favorite thing, isn't it? I knew that. You come in a little more. There we go. Okay. So it occurred to me when I was, oh, thanks, Lynn. Oh, Christina, ironing, I actually like to iron, I hate to tell you. It occurred to me that when you're doing a table runner, you're batting, it's a perfect place to put pieces of batting. You know how you have, like a big piece and then a long piece, and you just, what are you going to do with them all? So I took 2 small pieces, and of course yours is going to be, well, let me make it this way. It's going to be jaggy and all that, and that's fine. We worked that out. So I'm just going to show you how I make batting, and I use it in table runners especially because it's a table runner. Come on, not your prom dress. So when you have a raggy piece, you're going to put one over the other far enough so that the raggy parts are over each other. So I don't want them, like just barely. Let's get over there like a good ½ inch or so. See how this comes in here? So I want to give myself just a little more room so that every section, whether it's in or out, every section is over the one underneath, okay? And it doesn't have to be perfect. So these might not line up yet because you can do that after. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and I want to cut on the place where they both overlap each other. Does that make sense? Let me come in a little more. Well, if I come in more, then I have to move too far. I can't reach to cut. Oh, that's too much. Sorry. Okay. So I'm cutting a straight line where both battings cross over each other. And I wouldn't normally use my little rotary cutter. I'd use a bigger one. So what happens is I get rid of that junk and I get rid of that junk. And look, I have 2 pieces that line up perfectly because I cut them exactly at the same time. So now I'm going to put my machine on regular zigzag. So in my case, it's stitch 1-09. And I have my J foot on. Let me switch over to the other. Did everybody understand that part all right? So you can have a great big long piece and you may have to pin it if it's really long, but what the whole goal is when you cut it, when you're done, the 2 pieces, the cut edge, are both the same, and so they can butt up perfectly against each other. I know it looks like there's a gray spot there, but it really is lined up. Okay? So I'm going to bring them over, and I want to leave them side by side. And if you have a, probably the edge joining foot, the edge joining foot has a guide in the middle, so you can butt each piece up against that, but I can see right here. I want to keep them close together as I can. I don't want them to overlap because that would make a bump in my quilt. And when I start, because I'm never sure what kind of stitch width and length I want. Okay, so I'm going to say I want to go wider. So before you write down what it is, and I'm going to go a little longer, and I'll tell you what it is in a minute when it's, I don't want you to write it down, then cross it out, and write down, cross it out. So I'm looking right along here to make sure the 2 pieces are butted up side by side. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of pushing them in towards each other. Okay, so I used a width of 4.5 width of 4.5 and a stitch length of 2 on the zigzag. And let's see if I can show you. So here's where I was shorter. So I'm just going to go back and fix that. And it's white batting, I would probably use white thread. If it's your regular warm and natural, then you can use your beigey kind of thread. Okay, so can you see? There we go. See that? It's nice and flat. Nice and flat. Now, I did this way to remind you. So you see how this one's bumpy and this one's smooth? Can you see the difference? So you want them both, you want both of the same sides together. I did that so I would remember to, so you could see the difference close up, and I'd remember to tell you. So see how that's bumpy? See how that's smooth? When I turn it over, you see how this one's bumpy and that one's smooth. So I would just make sure I had the bumpy side, both of them on the same side. I wanted you to be able to see that you can easily see the difference. This is white and natural, which is warm and natural that's white. It's been bleached. The warm and natural is natural, and the white, I don't know, I think, is it white and warm or white and natural? I can't remember, but it's white and something. But I use a lot of white background fabric, so I like a white batting. So here, so you can easily see the difference. Bumpy over here, smooth over there. But see, nice and flat. No lumps, no bumps. You'll be surprised the pieces that you can put together. You'll start to be like the puzzle maker, because you'll just keep wanting to do more and more. Yes, Lynn, it does come in handy. So you're making a mug rug, or you're making a bag, or you're making something small. You know, sew some of those pieces together. Sometimes I'll just sit down and I'll sew a bunch of them together, and it really does become like a puzzle. It's like, okay, what piece can I put to this piece? Because when I feel this, I cannot feel that stitching at all. Not at all. Okay, so make sure you write this down. 4.5 on, so it's a zigzag stitch. I'm using the regular sewing thread. I still am using my Microtex 7010 needle. So it's a 4.5 width and a 2.0 length. Okay? So does anybody have any questions? I'm trying to get this up where you can see it. So if a couple of you could answer, do you want to next week do a little quilting on this before we move on to another project? If not, next week we'll just do something small with a block, because I haven't decided on a bigger project, because you know it's getting close to Christmas time, and I know everybody's busy with, you know, end of the year things, holiday stuff, rushing to make gifts and all that. So I thought I'd keep it simple, but we can do a little quilting on this next week if you want to. So I'll wait a minute and see if anybody puts anything in the chat. And don't forget, Saturday. I just love this thing. It's so cute. And look, can you see what I used there? Oh. Can you see what that is? It's a piece of zipper tape. It's a piece of, here's the teeth right there, that was left over from this. All right, I didn't get any answers from anybody yet, and I know I'm probably a minute or two ahead of. I talk, and it takes like 2 minutes for you to hear it. Cindy, how do you? Well, I was thinking in this case that I would probably do something in the sashing and keep it simple because the blocks are so busy. And I may even take some red thread. I don't normally do that. Okay, Christine, you're going to have to type that one again because it says is like, oh, I bet it says I would like to try quilting. Okay. Oh, Lynn's going to try edge to edge in her embroidery machine. That's a good one to practice on, but you got a lot of seams. So Cindy, because there's so many seams and so much going on, I would start with working in the sashing. So I think that's what I'll do next week is I'll do some quilting on this. So if you're gonna quilt along, just make sure you have your sandwich ready, which means your backing, your batting, and this, and I would make it, oh, there you go, Christine. I would make it so that your backing and batting are 2 or 3 inches bigger all the way around. Okay? I mean, you could quilt with just the batting and then put your backing on and turn it right side out like a pillow would be. But well, I'm gonna do it. I'll just do it regular, and then I'll put binding on it or whatever. I'll have to think about it during the week. But next week, well, just make it easy. So if you're not gonna quilt, you can just sit and watch. Make it easy on yourself, or if you don't have your blocks done, you can be working on them. Let's have an easy week next week. You can sit back and just watch if you'd like to. Okay, so any last minute questions? Remember Saturday is 1:30 instead of 1 this Saturday. It's my once a month work day. So last time I was even later, so later than the 1:30. So I apologize ahead. I will, the second I get through the door, I will put up the not the alert. I guess it's alert. That lets you know that I'll be going online shortly. I'll get that done before I get all set up, so at least it gives you some time, but it won't be before 1:30. And unfortunately, I have no way of letting you know otherwise. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time for Saturday if I'm late. Okay, so, oh, thank you. So, thanks everyone for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the little bell to get the alerts. Let's see. Thumbs up. Thumbs up are good. Pass on the thumbs down. And thank you everyone for joining in. We'll do a little quilting, or I'll do a little quilting next week. I'll experiment for you on this one. And I'll even do it like in red, I decided, so that you can really see it. I don't know how it's going to look, but I'll do it in red or gold. I think red probably. So I'll see you either Saturday or you'll see me Saturday around 1:30 or next Thursday at 7. And next Thursday I'll also have a sample of the project of what we're going to work on next. But I'm going to keep it simple through the holidays. So we'll do a little cutting and sewing. Okay, again, so thanks everybody for joining in. I appreciate you hanging out with me. Have a great evening and have a great weekend. And like I said, I'll see you either Saturday or next Thursday. Thanks.